Okay, guys, so this is a bit of an experiment, but we're going to try this one anyway. But right, so today's Friday, I'm not there, so we've got a bit of relief. So what I'm going to do is just go through what I want you guys to do for today's spell and give you a little presentation on what we're going to be looking at next, which is going to set us up for the final task in our workbooks. Okay, so as if it's just like a normal lesson, what you should be able to see just behind me, hopefully you can see the board a little better than I can looking through this. But what we're looking at is very simply review the demand curve and the change in the quantity demanded. That's what we did yesterday. And then we're going to also think about understanding the movement of the demand curve and the change in demand. Although they sound very similar, they are in fact different. So guys, please be aware that you, as I said before, what we do always need is our straight edge. All right, so make sure you've got a straight edge because you'll be drawing up a couple of demand curves, which is always good for all economics lessons. Now, first task I want us to do is set you up a nice little task just to get us warmed up. I have got, and I've given to the reliever, a little gap fill like this, just like what we did yesterday. So have a blast through that. Hopefully that shouldn't take you too long. So that's the first thing we can do. Now, the second thing we are going to do is I'm just going to do a very short presentation here, a recap on what we've been doing, looking at a movement along the demand curve, and then I'm going to introduce to you very quickly all about the idea of a change in demand as well. So let's get going on this one. So we've got that's one. Right. So the first thing we need to remember is just as a reminder, the first thing we're looking at is the whole idea of a movement along the demand curve. So you see that all right? Yeah, that should be right. So as we can see, we draw our axes on. This time I am going to just draw a sketch demand curve. And if you can remember, a sketch demand curve is one just where we have the straight line. This just illustrates the principle that we're looking at. Okay, so we're not plotting anything. There's nothing. There's no demand schedule. There's nothing we've got to plot it against. Hopefully you can see that all right. That's big enough. Maybe I need to bring it a little bit closer. So just bear with us a second. I'll move you a little bit closer. That's a bit better. There we go. That's a little bit better, isn't it? Right. Okay. So what we can see here is obviously P's and Q's, minus P's and Q's, left to right. Remember this one on a different axis. And there we have our demand curves from the top left to the bottom right, sloping downwards. So what we are illustrating is a change in price. So very simply, if you can remember from yesterday, we put in our first price, dotted lines please, label it P1, and where it hits that demand curve, move it down. Okay, and that is Q1. Okay, so we can see that is a price. At that price, we have that amount of quantity being demanded. Oh, I've forgotten something, obviously. Our titles to say this is a demand curve for grapes. Just came into my mind, for grapes. Okay, so that price, that amount of grapes are demanded. Okay, now imagine we are reducing the price of our grapes down to P2. If we flip that across and then down once more, okay, we've now got Q2, right? So what we are seeing is that from P1 down to P2, we're seeing a reduction in price, okay? And at the same time, there's a corresponding increase in our quantity demanded, okay? So as we remember, okay, this relationship between price and quantity is what we refer to as the law of demand here. So we can see this diagrammatically represented as the law of demand. Now, what this is illustrating, if you remember, is arrow going down is the movement, and this is the important bit, along the demand curve. Okay, so it's the movement along the demand curve, and that shows the relationship between our price and our quantity demanded. Okay, so this is obviously linking, and this is what we refer to as our law of demand. Okay, remember the law of demand: as price goes up, quantity demanded goes down, and vice versa. and ceteris paribus. Remember, all things being equal. Okay, so just as a reminder there, what we should basically be able to see is this is our movement along the curve. Now, this is obviously looking at the relationship, as I mentioned before, between price and quantity. Now, if you can remember, we were saying that there's not just price that influences demand. There's all these other things as well. There's fashions, there's income, there's what's happening with substitute goods, there's what's happening with complementary goods. Now, when we see an effect such as these, they have a different impact on our demand curve, which we're going to have a look at right now. So remember, our movement along the demand curve is the link of the law of demand. Okay, the next one we're going to look at, which is linked into this one here, understanding the movement of the demand curve, we'll have a little look at now. So, bear with me. And this time we'll do the same thing. We'll do the demand curve using our straight edge. Ooh. So our P, $sign Q, and our D should be there. And let's just say demand curve or jeans. I didn't write the thing earlier on actually, which was on the previous one. Jeans, okay. So what we now are aware of is that price is not reflected when we shift the curve, okay? The other things, this is now when we're considering the other things. So the other things we refer to as tastes, incomes, complementary, substitutes. Okay. Good way of remembering them is I refer to these as our ticks. Okay, so our ticks, these are the things that influence the overall demand. Okay, so very simply, okay, this is a lot simpler to write and to create. If we have an increase overall in the demand of a product because maybe the taste, the product has gone into fashion, all of a sudden we'll see an increase in demand, and this is represented very simply by a shift of the demand curve or a movement of the demand curve over to the right, B to B1. Sorry, not really good there. Okay. On the flip side, if we have, for example, incomes of consumers going down, maybe because income tax has gone up and the government are taking more tax on us, what we might see is a shift in the demand of a product going to the left. Okay, so this is obviously showing an increase, and this is showing a decrease. And obviously, we would label that D2 as well. Okay, now when we look at this one, the way that we illustrate this, what this is showing us is that regardless of the price, there is an increase or a decrease in demand. Now, the way that we would illustrate that would be if I take that one up, so obviously it doesn't make it too confusing. If I do that, what we can now see is that, in fact, let me take that arrow off as well, the plus. What we can now see is that on one price, we'll call that P, we can see that the quantity demanded has increased from Q to Q1. So what that's saying is the price has stayed the same, but still we have an increase in quantity demanded from Q to Q1. And this is because maybe it's gone into fashion, it's taste, people have got more money. It could be that complementary goods have either increased. So when we talk about complementary goods, it'll be things like fish and chips. Okay, so it could be the fact that the price of fish has gone up, and that might mean that the demand overall for chips may have gone down because less fish is being eaten. Likewise, substitutes, for example, say Coke and Pepsi, you might find that if the price of Coke goes up, then the overall demand for Pepsi will go up as well because it's now the cheaper good, okay? And according to the law of demand, it's going to increase. Okay, so this is when we're referring to a movement of the demand curve. Okay, or sometimes it's referred to as a shift of the demand curve. Okay, so this is not the law of demand. This is the all the other things that influence demand. Okay, now so that's just a quick blast through. Now obviously we will be going through this again, but what I'd just like us to do is just to finish off today's lesson. So hopefully you would have finished the gap, you'd have done the gap fill. You'd obviously had a look at what we're doing here in this little wee presentation. And then the final thing I'd like us to do in our workbooks as described, and you've all got these now, hopefully, if we turn to page number 18, this is the page here, have a squeeze, have a read through this lot here, okay, and then there are a load of questions. There's quite a few questions here that go on up until all the way up until, oh, blimey, page 31. There's plenty of ones to be going through. Now, as a rule, I don't, if I've explained this, forgive me for repeating myself. As a rule, I don't tend to go through these because you can do this on your own, because at the back, there are all the answers, okay? So obviously the point of this, don't just write in the answers. There's no point. I'm not taking in for grades or anything. But the point of this is obviously you have a go at doing the questions and then check back to see what your answers are. Okay, guys, hopefully that will keep you busy for today's spell. And be good in the lesson. Thank you.